Hi guys, this is Mr. Tan. So today we are going to look at different growth strategy options, and some of these will include organic growth, joint ventures, and mergers and acquisitions. And along the way, we're going to bring in company examples of when they were used by various other companies. And then finally, we would like you to again download the Zapper app. Now, if we take the first one in terms of organic growth, I can relate to this specifically from the first company I worked for when I left university, which was a manufacturing company dealing in automotive, gardening, and mechanical security devices. So the company sold three ranges of different products: automotive, gardening products to the garden centres, and a range of mechanical steering wheel immobilizers. The company was turning over approximately, £4 million, and they had innovative products in the gardening, automotive, and mechanical security market, where they had patents on various products, and these patents secured them for a good 25 years in terms of distributing their products to the retail market. Their main clients were Halfords, B&Q, Argus, A1 Motor Stores, Motor World, and independent retail stores up and down the country. So what were their strategy? Their strategy was really just for organic growth. When I went in and I was marketing the range of mechanical steering wheel devices, the sales of these took off because crime was very, very high. So these took off in Halfords and Argus and A1 Motor Stores, and people were buying them because they wanted to secure their cars. So the turnover of the company now was increasing due to the marketing that we were doing, and now spending literally £1 million a year on marketing the Stop Lock range. But they had no plans to do anything else. The directors were focused on developing new products. They were focused on themselves and securing their pensions. They had a turnover of 4 million, which was increasing to 10. They had the retail outlets, and they were very safe and secure. They didn't want to go and buy other companies. They didn't have any motivation to go and export or to do any of these things. But once the success of the Stop Lock range started to grow, and we exhibited at Automechanica in Germany. We exhibited at the Sands in Las Vegas and at the NEC in Birmingham. Then orders started to come in from abroad. And so the company didn't want to lose the sales from other countries. So they set up agents in other countries and then an export department at their home office in the UK, because they didn't want to lose those sales. But they weren't really aggressively pursuing that, but they didn't want to lose it at the same time, so they set up facilities to take advantage of these sales. And then, the Stop Lock range and their ranges of products were doing very, very well, but again, they still had no ambitions to do anything else. They were bought out by a management buy-in team in 1994, and the company was sold for 20 million. So the range of products which I was marketing when I went into the company was 4 million. When the directors sold the company, it was 20 million. When the new management team came in, they had the backing of financial investors from Grant Thornton, based in Crawley, and they had money. And the first thing they did was consolidated everything. And they looked at all the personnel and who was needed and who was not needed. So they streamlined activities, and then they had an aggressive acquisition plan to buy other gardening products. They saw the expansion within the gardening side of their market, one of a different market sector that they were in. And they bought and acquired another company literally within 6 months. And it just shows the strategy and the investment and the level of risk in terms of the owners and the directors leading it forward. And it depends really on the amount of risk you want to take at that point in your life, and how much money and investment that you need in order to take this on, and where you actually want to go. So it does depend on the leadership of the organization. So I saw two different types of leaderships. One which was really to do with organic growth, and the organic growth was growing all the time. And then when a new management buy-in team, they had a more aggressive approach in terms of acquisitions, because they had the financial backing behind them. The next type of growth strategy are joint ventures. Now, a joint venture is an agreement with two or more companies with mutual benefit and complementary resources. And what happens here is that a joint venture, you don't join your two companies. In fact, you take out resources from your own company, be it financial or whatever, and you create a new company. And then you issue shares in those companies, and the percentage of shares goes out appropriately as negotiated and agreed between the partners and the firms to the appropriate companies. And they exercise control over the enterprise and consequently share revenues, expenses, and assets. Large companies use this method to diversify. And joint ventures can ensure success of smaller projects without really investing a lot more revenue in terms of a merger or changing your whole company culture and structure. So a joint venture is kind of like less risky than a merger as such. And with a joint venture, there are various reasons why companies may want to join together. So let's have a look at some of these examples. So if we look at BMW and Brilliance Auto, well, BMW wanted to break into the Chinese marketplace, and they wanted to manufacture and sell in the Chinese marketplace. But according to the Chinese legislation, that wasn't allowed unless you had a partner with almost equal share. So BMW and the Chinese automobile manufacturer Brilliance Auto Group in 2003 formed another company called BMW Brilliance, and this was specifically formed to produce and sell BMW cars in China. And so BMW invested 450 million US dollars and took a 50% stake, and Brilliance Auto took a 40.5% stake, and the Chinese government took a 9.5%. But now the Chinese government has, begun to look at their legislation and said that this is no longer necessary for the automotive market in 2018. And so BMW now wants to, or has announced plans to increase its stake in BMW Brilliance to 75%. But here is a joint venture which worked for both companies, and BMW, without going into a joint venture, wouldn't have been able to manufacture and sell cars in China at that time when the legislation was different. We have another look at Walt Disney, NBC Universal, News Corporation, and others, and they formed a joint venture of 4 different companies to form Hula in 2007, which was a joint venture, to run programming from several media titans. So no one of the big titans wanted to put all their money into it, but they were happy to go into a joint venture with other companies. When the joint venture was established, none of the parent companies had majority control. And so and many of the partners in Walt Disney's called this complicated and confusing. So later on, Disney bought Fox's Warner Media's assets in 2019 to become the majority stakeholder. Although Comcast still owns roughly a third. Hulu, the partners have agreed that Disney will buy Comcast's interest in the company for no less than 27.5 billion, sometime in around 2024. So we can see here now with this joint venture, there are over 4 different companies, quite large companies in their own rights, to form another company for a specific purpose. Even if we look at Boeing and Lockheed Martin. So ULA is a joint venture that was formed in 2006 by 2 private aerospace companies, Lockheed Martin and Boeing. And why did they do this? Well, they saw the competition that was coming from Elon Musk, and Elon Musk were undercutting their prices. And if Elon Musk continued to do this, then both Boeing and Lockheed Martin would be out of business. So they decided to form a joint venture together so that they could pull resources in, start a company, and then offer satellites being launched into space. And they had a 50-50 joint venture. The partners have already delivered over 100 satellites into orbit. So again, this was a very, very successful joint venture between Boeing and Lockheed Martin to compete, to come and to counter the threat against Elon Musk. So now we come on the mergers and acquisitions. And as we looked with a joint venture, we said that with a joint venture, the joint venture, the companies involved, could be 2 or more, pulls resources in to create a new company. So and then the shares are allocated out, and a percentage of shares out, and it could be 50-50, it could be 30-30, and 10, and so on and so forth. So how does it work for mergers and acquisitions? So let's have a look. So, a merger is a combination of 2 previously separate firms, and they kind of like merge together. Usually, the merger is with 2 similar sized companies. You don't really get a merger between a smaller and a larger company, but predominantly with 2 similar sized companies. And it can be seen as a decision made by 2 businesses that are broadly equal in terms of factors such as size, scale, operations, customers. And the enlarged merged business, though the changes made by combining both together can actually cut costs, cut revenues, and increase profits. In terms of cutting your over production costs, if you're doubling up on production costs, so reducing your overall fixed costs, reducing your costs in your manufacturing and your cost of goods sold, therefore increasing your gross profit and your overall net profit. And you're bringing a lot more things together. You're bringing in resources, technology, innovation, expertise in terms of the industry and the personnel that you have. So you're bringing all these things together to compete with the outside competitive environment. So what typically happens in a merger is that a new company is formed, and the shares in the new company are distributed to their shareholders of the 2 original businesses in a suitable, split. So again, with a merger, the 2 companies come and are merged together to form a completely new company. So their shares and their stocks and are all brought into the new company, and new shares are issued and then appropriately split accordingly as regards to their agreement. And so this is a completely new entity, a bit like the joint venture, but in the joint venture you got the 2 if we say there were 2 companies like Boeing and Lockheed Martin, which keep their main companies, but they pour resources into a completely brand new company. So they've got their separate companies and they create another company. But with the merger, their original companies no longer exist because they create a completely new company according to the Formation of the Companies Act 2006. So when we think about an acquisition now, an acquisition is when one company purchases most or all of the other company's shares to gain control of that company. Purchasing more than 50% of a target firm's stock and other assets allows the acquirer to make decisions about the newly acquired assets without the approval of the companies and other shareholders. So acquisitions, which are common in business, may occur with the target company's approval. They've approached them, they've actually approved this, and you're not going to get resistance to this, or in spite of its disapproval, in some cases. With approval, there's often a, no shop clause during the process. So if we look at some examples of mergers and acquisitions, we can see on 1st of December 1998, Exxon and Mobil announced their merger plans, and a deal valued at that time 81 billion US dollars. The merged new business entity became the third largest company in the world at that time of the announcement. The merged company was called ExxonMobil Corp. The new company retained both Exxon and the Mobil brands. So we can see here that with the merger in this case, that the two companies coming together, Elon Musk and Mobil, making them the third largest company at that time. If we look at another example, the merger between Heinz Co and Kraft Foods Group created a new organization in 2016 and was expected to enter the world's top 10 largest food companies. The deal between Heinz and Kraft cost approximately 100 billion, and stakeholder expectations were high. However, the reality was disappointing. The company has run out of steam, and the experts put problems down to missed opportunities due to changing consumer preferences. So again, another example of a merger for a new company. But the question really is, what are some of the benefits of, mergers and acquisitions? So, merging and acquiring another company can give you economies of scale. It can, widen your customer base, increase your customer base, taking on both your other company that you've either merged with or acquired customers, and you'll be able to buy because you have maybe new markets which you may not have had access to before. So you've got more markets now, so you can buy on a larger quantity, buy on a larger scale, which means you can command cheaper prices from your suppliers. You have economies of scope. Mergers and acquisitions benefit include economies of scope, which refers to the reduction in production cost of one product due to the production of another related product. It gives you a competitive edge in the market. Mergers and acquisitions mean greater financial strength in both companies involved in the transaction. So you've got more cash flow within the business to do more things with. You can, access the best talent. Talent acquisition is one of the biggest concerns of companies that wish to excel in the market. So, the expertise and the talent from, your employees. In addition to this, you have access to resources. Improves the access to materials, suppliers, and tangible resources through acquisition. We've seen that from one example, one business may acquire or merge with one of its suppliers to improve production cycles and guarantee access to critical materials. Diversification at the risk through portfolio divergence, cost-effective alternatives facilities, access to new markets, which again means more customers, which means greater economies of scale, and enterprise continuation. So, we can see all the benefits of these as well, but it's not always to say that mergers and acquisitions will be a success. So we've looked at the different growth strategies, and really I think it depends on a number of factors which one you decide and why. It depends on how much risk you want to take, how much revenue you have in your company in order to take on this risk, and if you want to take that risk on, and what competition is facing you, and how intense is the competition, and in terms of international competition and domestic competition. So where are things going? Where do you see yourselves in X number of years? So I think these are the things that really come into play when you think about the different growth strategies. We have looked at organic growth, and organic growth, you can develop your products and hopefully they can be unique. In the case of the products that we were manufacturing, they were very unique and they had it patented, so they were protected. And the owners didn't really want to take too much risk or too much investment elsewhere, and at the same time they didn't want to lose any sales. So yes, they grew organically as sales increased both domestically and internationally. With regards to joint ventures, we can see that this is a business agreement between two or more companies where they create a new business entity, they create a new company. And the good thing about this is that you can large companies can use this method to diversify, and joint ventures can ensure success of smaller projects, and we've seen that as well. We've seen that with BMW and Brilliance trying to get into the Chinese marketplace in 2003. So because of the legislation, they had to enter into a joint venture, which they created a new company called BMW Brilliance. And that was to break into the marketplace. And then you have mergers and acquisitions. So, if we look at mergers and acquisitions, growth is often a necessity for any organization to succeed in a competitive environment. You need to grow, and there's loads of competitors out there. So if you can merge or acquire other businesses, then you acquire their customers maybe in other regions. You can gain greater economies of scale, whereby you can lower your costs and increase your gross profit, thus your net profit margins. May have opportunity to expand in product range into new markets. Competitive pressures may encourage acquisitions and mergers. Mergers and acquisitions can core competencies and expands the skill base of the businesses. But there are problems. Not all mergers and acquisitions succeed. The process itself could be very expensive, and the negotiations could be difficult and could default, and you may not necessarily come to a conclusion in terms of getting an agreement. And also your anticipated outcomes in terms of what you hope to achieve may not live up to expectations, as we've seen as well. And also business cultures between firms differ. So when merging two firms together, it can be difficult or challenging if the two firms have two different ways of conducting their business and two different organizational cultures. So you need to assess this to your industry, to the competition, to your cash flow, what's happening in the marketplace once you've done your situational analysis. Once again, guys, if you can download the Zapper app, go onto your mobile, type in download Zapper app, and then you'll see install. And then once you have this, you can load it, and you'll see the barcode here, and the barcode will lead you to other videos we would like you to watch. So thank you today from Mr. Tan.